Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Navigating Special Needs Planning. I'm Mike Delgass. In our last episode, we focused on supporting school-age children with special needs. Today, we're looking at what comes next, post-secondary planning. We'll talk about how to make decisions with 529s, when guardianship or alternatives make sense, key estate planning steps, and what to know about Social Security. And if you're still deciding whether college is the right path and how to navigate it, if so, check out our webinar linked in the description. I'm joined by our experts, Heather Flanagan and Rich Yam, to make this practical and clear. So thanks again, and thanks Heather and Rich for joining us. So Heather, I'll turn to you first. Want to talk about aging out. So when do the required services, the free and appropriate public education that we've talked about in the past, when do school services typically end under the IDEA, and what should families do in the last year to prepare financially and logistically for life after school?
So generally, they end at age 22. There are some state-specific things that happen here as far as what they consider 22. It's either once you get a high school diploma or you turn 22. There were some changes happening during COVID because I think they were realizing in many states that kids were not able to access. So they loosened those requirements a little bit. I think it was 21 at one point in some of these states. But some states will let them finish out the year. Other states is if you turn 22 during the school year, you're out. So you just don't start that year. But just look at what happens in your state. I would say start planning way before the year before you're going to age out. Usually if you've got an IEP going on at the school, they're starting to think about aging out generally around age 16. But really, we started as soon as we moved to Pennsylvania. When my daughter was 6, and I've mentioned this before, we registered with our local county to kind of even start the coordination of talking about benefits for when she would be an adult. So the planning can't start too early.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think in some states there are requirements for when transition planning needs to be part of the IEP meetings, which in Connecticut is referred to as a PPT. I think it's age 14 in Connecticut, but I think, frankly, the big takeaway here is that there's a lot of state specificity, and there's also a lot of potential change through regulations and stuff like that. So it's something that you really need to kind of check in on.
Yeah, and just one more point about that. There, in a lot of states, there are wait lists for vocational rehab or Medicaid waivers or day programs. So really, the sooner you get on that wait list, the better. And then I think I've also mentioned previously that kind of once the kids get to closer to those ages, then the need gets stronger. So they'll move up that wait list, but the sooner you get on the wait list, the better.
So changing topics a bit, switching gears to 529 plans. 529 plans are things we use a lot in the financial planning and investment tax planning for our clients. But when college isn't the right path, what do we do? What are the best options for existing 529 plans, Rich, if we're kind of changing the direction of travel?
Yeah, great question, Mike. Yeah, so under the Tax Cut and Jobs Act of 2017, 529 rollovers were permitted to able accounts tax-free. Now, that Tax Cut and Jobs Act provision expired in 2025, or was set to expire of the December 31st of this year, but the One Big Beautiful Bill Act passed July of this year made that permanent for now, essentially. So currently, under current law, 529 rollovers to able accounts can be done, but they are subject to the able annual contribution limit. So remember, the able accounts can only receive up to the gift tax annual exclusion amount each year from all sources. So for this year, that's $19,000 for all sources. So for instance, if parents, grandparents contributed to able accounts up $19,000 this year, you wouldn't be able to do the rollover this year. You'd have to wait till next year to do the 529 rollover. So that's important to remember there.
Yeah, no, that's important. And there's more information about ABLE accounts on our webinar or on our website and in some of our prior webinars and that kind of thing. So if you need to know more about those, but you can kind of think of them as an off-the-shelf special needs trust that's kind of a special statutory creation. Again, kind of moving through the various topics that we need to focus on here, going to guardianship and some of the alternatives to guardianship. Heather, I know you've had experience here. When does guardianship become relevant? What decisions does it cover, and what alternatives are there to guardianship that people should think about?
So guardianship happens, and again, there may be some state-specific requirements here, but generally at age 18. And it's seen as really the most restrictive. It's a last resort, but it really is for individuals who cannot make decisions for themselves personally, or their medical decisions, or their financial decisions, and that may be required. Generally, you're going to want to get a special needs attorney involved to help you through this process, who's familiar with the court system and the judges, and can help you, file the petition and walk through that process. For guardianship, it's for the person's property or the person, or you can do both. Alternatives would be, for example, identifying individuals who can be supported decision makers for that individual. It does not require a court proceeding to do that. You can maybe get a power of attorney if the person is able to understand signing that document, as well as, the general healthcare documents and advance directives. That would kind of be a similar type of package. Also for Social Security, when you're applying for Social Security, generally there needs to be a representative payee, someone that can help oversee that account and those funds for someone who's not able to do that for themselves. And then, other things that we've talked about, ABLE accounts, special needs trusts, and things like that.
Right. I mean, I think one of the points here also is that, guardianship creates a guardianship estate, which is like kind of a trust or a decedent's estate. And so that becomes its own thing, its own legal entity, and accounts need to get retitled and that kind of stuff. And that's definitely something we help people with all the time, helping manage the money movements and that kind of thing within the guardianship estate. And also, I think the point about powers of attorney, healthcare proxies, and that kind of thing, I mean, that's really applicable to any child turning 18 if you want to make sure that parents can help when kids get into a problem or something like that. Those are really important, but definitely vital in the special needs context.
And I'll add two things about the guardianship proceeding that I think are important. So I know in some states like New York, for instance, where I used to practice, you could actually start proceeding just before they're turning 18. So that, because sometimes it takes a little bit of time, a couple of months. So you want to get the ball rolling so that when the time comes when they turn 18, the order can be issued pretty quickly as far as a guardian being appointed. And the second thing is just, I think, Mike, you already mentioned, like guardianship accounts subject to court supervision. So those guardians have to be really good at record keeping, making sure they understand where the money went out, what it was used for, all those types of things.
And, that's part and parcel of a broader estate plan potentially. So Rich, on the estate planning context, I made reference to a special needs trust when I was talking about ABLE accounts and stuff, as if they were kind of mini special needs trusts or kind of statutory special needs trusts. What is a special needs trust? Why is it an important thing? Why is it something that we need to have?
Yeah. So third-party special needs trusts basically are vehicles that allow family members, friends to provide for individuals with disabilities without jeopardizing their financial eligibility for benefits like SSI or Medicaid. So it's really important we're able to provide for those individuals, help them improve their lives, but not put it in their individual names. Because once it's in their individual names, SSI, Medicaid, other means-based benefits, they're going to look for accounts that are in the individual's names. And if it exceeds certain thresholds, they're not going to be eligible for those benefits. So it's a great way for us to help those individuals without messing up their benefits. And third-party special needs trusts are not subject to any type of Medicaid payback provisions, which is essentially Medicaid saying, okay, this person has now passed away. Can we try to recover some of the funds that we spent on this person? Third-party special needs trusts are not subject to that. So it's a beautiful vehicle to provide for those individuals.
Right, and maybe just to add a bit there, you see first-party special needs trusts, which are the payback kind of trusts, especially when there was an injury during birth that then there was a medical malpractice settlement on. So you may end up with larger amounts in a first-party special needs trust as a result, or when you have somebody who's received gifts, through custodial accounts or something like that, and those end up needing to go to that person because that's how custodial accounts are set up, and then you need to have a first-party special needs trust or something like that.
I've also seen it in the context of like accidentally, in your retirement account, you just typically it's spouse, then children, and you forgot that your retirement account should have maybe listed a special needs trust as one of the beneficiaries or one of the designated beneficiaries on that retirement account or a life insurance policy or something like that.
That brings up a really important point in terms of once you've created the special needs trust, people like us and clients need to really scrub through what their estate plan looks like and thinking about the estate plan in the widest possible lens. So it includes retirement accounts, retirement beneficiary designations. It includes insurance payouts. A whole bunch of other things need to be coordinated with special needs trusts, and that might go beyond just the nuclear family and include grandparents and other collateral relatives. A lot of times people want to make sure that a child with special needs is kind of fully funded, and other people will be sending money in, but they need to know how to do that and where to direct those kinds of gifts. So Heather, Rich was talking about ensuring financial eligibility, especially for Social Security. Let's turn to Social Security and talk a little bit about benefits there. What should people know? What should families know about SSI, applying for it at age 18, transitioning to disabled adult child benefits later?
So again, state-specific issues here. Some states allow you to kind of have one application for SSI and Medicaid. Other states require additional application, once you get SSI to then qualify for Medicaid. I will refer people to their state or local disability services agency because that is a great advocate and assistance for people to help manage through those applications. They will help you plan for services. And again, this is something that you can do right away with your children at any age, is to get involved and to contact that local department. For us, it was actually a county department. It was Chester County Department of Mental Health and Developmental Disabilities. Each state will have their community-based organizations that can help with that federal funding, and they help with that service planning. And they also, once services are in place, will be the ones to monitor those services and make sure that they're appropriate. So it's very important that you get in touch with those agencies because they can really help you walk through that process and help you with those applications. And what we're really looking at is, for both SSI and Medicaid, SSI, you get a payment, but Medicaid is so important because it's where all of these, home and community-based services originate from. And so that's how you get qualified for those services.
We were referring to ABLE accounts and the need to have them to avoid disqualification. How does that integrate, and how does part-time work integrate into SSI eligibility and Medicaid?
You want to actually utilize those ABLE accounts and special needs trusts to kind of preserve eligibility for the individual. I mean, Rich and Mike were talking a little bit about this. If there are assets above generally $2,000 that the individual owns, you are not going to qualify for a lot of these benefits. So people will utilize, special needs trusts, ABLE accounts to kind of benefit the individual without kind of getting them kicked out of these benefits. And that's long-term. So it's not just the qualification, but it's like maintaining those benefits over time.
I want to emphasize something that Heather said, and that's the testing continues. It's not just you pass the eligibility tests and then you're home free. There's a constant look at what is building up and that kind of stuff. But Rich, what did you want to add there?
Yeah, I was just going to say, so some individuals who do have the ability to work can work, and if they're not contributing to like an employer sponsored plan, like a 401k or something like that, they can actually add an additional, right now it's up to $15,000. Currently this year it changes every year, into their ABLE account. And that's in addition to the regular $19,000 from all sources. So that is an additional benefit for individuals who can work and are able to work. They can kind of use that ABLE account as a place to kind of preserve more funds. And the ABLE account, so that everyone understands, once it does exceed $100,000 in balance, the SSI, those payments that Heather was talking about, that the individual would be entitled to, may go away until the ABLE account goes back down under $100,000. So that's the limitation and how it kind of the SSI eligibility intersects with the ABLE account and Medicaid.
So a need to keep monitoring balances and to make sure you're not messing up eligibility and spending it where it's appropriate.
And I think generally for clients of ours where they have, like, the individual has their own account, an ABLE account, and a special needs trust, for me, I always kind of tell them, use your individual stuff first for your expenses, things in your individual name, and the guardianship account for personal expenses, then the ABLE account, then the third-party special needs trust. That's probably the tier that I would go with.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And with that, I think we'll close it up. I think this was a great quick overview on some of the post-secondary issues. So thank you so much, Heather and Rich. Thank you all for joining us. These transitions moving from school to adulthood bring big decisions, but with the right planning, families can protect benefits and create flexibility for the future. So if you have questions, reach out to your advisor and a special needs attorney to make sure your financial, legal, and benefit strategies all work together. And we'll see you next time. Thank you very much.